Welcome back, and if you've just joined us, you're watching DEJI360. It appears Nigeria-based militant Islamic sect Boko Haram is on some kind of resurgence. The sect has carried out over six attacks actually in the last less than 2 weeks that Muhammadu Buhari was sworn in as Nigeria's new president. Buhari had in his inaugural speech pledged actually to make Boko Haram history. But it appears the sect is sending a clear message to him that he might need to work harder than his predecessor, Goodluck Jonathan, if he hoped to achieve that feat. Boko Haram has carried out a series of bombings in the country's northeast in recent times, and perhaps to make a statement of intent. On Thursday, June the 4th, about 27 people were killed in a bomb blast at the popular Gambo Jimeta market in Jimeta, Yola, the Adamawa state capital. That's in Nigeria's northeast. On the same day, a number of soldiers were killed at a checkpoint near a military barracks in Maiduguri in what was an apparent suicide attack blamed on a suspected Boko Haram suicide bomber. On June the 2nd, about 30 persons were killed in another blast at a local abattoir, also in Maiduguri. Witnesses actually said the bomb was hidden under a butcher's table. Now, just days before that incident, some 30 persons were also killed in 2 separate bomb attacks, all blamed on Boko Haram. The spate of bomb attacks have simply gone up in recent times, and all of this happening at a time when the military has made significant progress in routing the sect from their Sambisa forest stronghold. President Buhari has been holding talks with Nigeria's neighbors Chad and Niger to seek further collaboration with the two countries to end the insurgency. Joining me now to discuss this further is a foremost Nigerian security expert, Dr. Ona Ekomo. Doctor, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Let me begin by asking you, what exactly is going on here? Are we seeing a resurgent Boko Haram?
Well, Deji, good afternoon. Thank you for having me on. Now, the Boko Haram has been defeated in terms of holding territory the way they held it before, where 75% of Borno State at the time was under their control. They had most of the local governments under their control. Now, but what they have done is they've just changed to another page on their playbook. They have gone to pure terror now, and that is why you are seeing a lot of IEDs going off. That is improvised explosive devices going off in different places, and they are a little more surreptitious in their attack patterns now, and they are targeting also. We need to study it such that we can figure out where they are going to hit next, because what is happening right now is that they have seen that they're not able to match the Nigerian military, toe-to-toe in that kind of an encounter, in that kind of conflict. So they've gone back to conventional terrorism, where you carry out stealth attacks, and then you carry out bombings, you plant bombs, and the way they started basically 6 years ago, they've gone back to that playbook now. So that's what we are seeing. That is the resurgence we are seeing now.
But over the last 1 week, we have seen an increased spate of attack. I mean, do you think they're sending a message to President Buhari, considering what he said during his inaugural speech, basically saying he was going to go after Boko Haram and end the insurgency? Because in the past 1 week, close to 82 persons have been killed.
Yes, the fatality figure is really too high to bear, because what we see happening is that they are ratcheting up their attacks. The intensity is increasing, and of course the body count is also increasing. Now, whether they are sending a message to the incoming or the new president, or whether they are bidding goodbye to the old president, is not very clear. But what is clear is that Nigerians are dying, and something needs to be done about it. Now, I think in terms of the new president and his words during the inauguration, they seem to be saying to the president that they are still a lethal force to be reckoned with, and they are an existential security threat to Nigeria. And and to Nigerians. And in fact, I think what they are doing right now should have implication for the way the government is going to tackle this terrorism going forward. Again, that is deriving from the words that were spoken at the inauguration.
Now, could we in any way say that it appears, or that the military is actually losing the momentum against Boko Haram? Because before now, we know the military had the upper hand, and now we're seeing this.
No, sir. The military isn't losing the war. That's what I meant when I said they changed their playbook. They went to another page of their playbook. Their strategy previously was to hold down territory and try to build a caliphate. In fact, you remember Shekau actually declared the Caliphate of Goza last year. Now, based on the fact that a re-energized Nigerian military came back and flushed them out of those places, along with the help from these neighboring West African countries, they have seen that they cannot stand the military, in a frontal assault. So what they have just done is they've gone back to what they are. They are a terrorist group. They are not supposed to be a governing group. But they were trying to govern. That was the whole idea of the caliphate. So they have now gone back again to what they originally were. That is a terrorist group. And they are operating from that realm. But you see, terrorism, there is no front line in terrorism. It's called asymmetric warfare. And the front line is anywhere. It can be in a beer parlor, it can be in a football match, it can be anywhere. It can be in a church, in a school, anywhere. So that's the thing about terrorism. Like you said, close to the barracks in Maiduguri, there was a detonation at even a checkpoint. Now, you will expect that a checkpoint is a hardened target because a checkpoint is usually target hardened. You have sandbags, you have drums. So even if somebody comes there and pours fire on the checkpoint, that's on the guys at the checkpoint, the soldiers at the checkpoint, they can withstand it and return fire. But here you had some guys in a vehicle, they were behaving rationally, they came up to a checkpoint, and it was a VBIED attack all the way. So, and when they got to the checkpoint, they detonated, and of course you had 30 dead at that point. So I think what they have done is they've just kind of rebranded. In another interview, I said they transformed into another type of Boko Haram. That is a Boko Haram that delivers pure terror instead of trying to govern some territory in Borno, Yobe, or Adamawa states.
Okay, let us talk about this visit that President Buhari embarked on. He just concluded that visit now to Niger and Chad. What do you make of that visit? Some people have actually criticized the president that he's basically towing the line of the outgone president, Goodluck Jonathan, that, that Nigeria should be able to deal with this alone.
I think the president's visit, in terms of going to see our neighbors, to thank them and to elicit their more support from them, I think it was a sound visit strategically. The reason being why we hadn't been able to defeat Boko Haram or in the past was because of the fluid borders. They could always go across the borders. And now let me also explain something to you, Deji. When the leader of Boko Haram, the former leader, the dead leader now, Mohammed Yusuf, was alive, he appointed emirs, that is leaders of Boko Haram in all those countries. So there is Boko Haram in Chad, there's Boko Haram in Niger, there's Boko Haram in Cameroon, and they have leaders. So Boko Haram is well entrenched in all these countries when it wasn't even a violent struggle, a violent organization. And they have followers in these countries. So it had been historically easy when being pursued by the Nigerian authorities to go across the border and go to their counterparts on the other side, or seek safe haven. And that is why it had been difficult that's why it was very difficult for the Goodluck administration, Goodluck Jonathan administration to defeat these bad guys until the French president spoke to these francophone countries around us to cooperate with Nigeria and flush out these guys. And now, of course, Boko Haram did us a favor by attacking a lot of targets inside Cameroon, inside Chad, and inside Niger. So that actually got their ire up. It's not necessarily the AU mandate. The AU mandate, in fact, that hasn't even gone into effect yet. It wasn't the AU mandate that prompted this collaboration, which has seen the progress that we've seen. Now, with that, it was a vice method they use now, because when you are pressing from the neighboring countries and Nigerian troops are pressing from these countries, the Boko Haram elements get caught in the middle, so they don't have anywhere to run. So either they give up the fight, or they die, or perhaps they give up terrorism. So that is what has worked well. That is why we're able to recapture all that territory from them. So, but now that they have gone back to pure terror again, they've changed the playbook. Now, why I keep saying this, DG, is I'm hoping the Nigerian authorities are seeing what's happening, because I see a lot of conventional thinking, a lot of conventional strategy in what is being said, even by the new president right now, which is not going to work in terms of defeating pure terror tactics.
Let me ask you. Some time ago, we had, the president of Chad, Idris Deby, come out to say that's in the dying days of former President Goodluck Jonathan's regime. Now, when he came to visit the former president, he came out to actually admit that Nigerian troops and Chadian troops had actually not been collaborating in the theater of operation. That's in the field. And now that Buhari has gone, he's pledged to work with Nigeria and pledged to ensure that his country's troops now work in collaboration with Nigeria to end this insurgency. Do we expect to see better collaboration now between the Nigerian side and the Chadian side? I'm talking about, in the field of operation now, going by this pledge by Idris Deby.
Well, what is happening, it's perhaps obvious for most analysts to see. At the political level, there is agreement, there is congruence. The political leaders agree, and they smile, and they have nice cocktails, and they agree on what needs to be done. But at the tactical level, at the level where the military commanders and the military personnel work side by side, there's a lot of conflict, because there is also cultural differences here. The Nigerian culture, which is derived mostly from the our British colonial masters, tends to be a little bit more self-effacing and a little bit more conservative. Whereas the Chadian culture, which derives from the French colonial masters, is a little more flowery. So, what do I mean by that? If there is some kind of a conflict and the Chadian guys overwhelm Boko Haram, they come and say, the Nigerian troops are not able to fight. We kill Boko Haram. They make a lot of noise, and which to a Nigerian sensibility is a little bit, offensive. So that is what has been robbing the troops on, against one another. And not that they actually openly, that we don't have any blue on blue conflict. Blue on blue meaning people who are fighting on the same side, shooting each other. But it's just these kinds of things, these kinds of spoken words mostly. And then, of course, it creates, the Nigerian guys are tiffed up, and they don't want to work with the Chadians or whoever is, the Cameroonians tend to do it also. Cameroonians always really tend to steal Nigerian thunder. In fact, the whole of Africa, everybody wants to steal the thunder from Nigeria, unfortunately. So, and that's the truth. So, but anyhow, I think what should happen now is that the agreement, the congruence at the political level, at the level of leaders, should simmer down to the generals, and then down to the captains, and then the troops, the common troops down there. And they should be made to understand that we have a unified command system. Because in the absence of a unified command, then you continue to have these kinds of things. But where everybody is having his own command, you don't have a unified command. The Cameroonians have their command, the Chadians have their command, the Nigerians have their command. Of course, you have a lot of rivalry, and you have a lot of conflict, or in fact, just talkbacks not necessarily conflict, certainly not armed conflict, but you have a lot of disagreement of this nature.
In that case, I have to ask you this question. Do you think the appointment of Major General Burate, that's the Nigerian general now, to head the multinational joint task force would make any difference at all?
Oh, certainly. You know, that appointment will certainly solve the problem. I hope it will solve the problem. It depends on the leadership style he brings in there. Because if he comes in there and says, okay, I have a devolved style, let there be laissez-faire, let everybody answer in Papa name, then of course you're going to have difficulties. But if he comes there and imposes discipline and says, listen, we all speak through one spokesman, we coordinate operations, we coordinate resources, we coordinate strategies, we coordinate tactics, we coordinate attack plans and all, then it becomes a little more coherent. And so you won't have this difficulty that we're having right now. If everybody is speaking, like I said before, everybody answering his papa's name, and nobody really, cares what the next guy is doing. So I think that is a very good one there. It's Nigeria's war. We should lead it. These guys are just supporters. They are supporting caste. It's just that Nigeria is being very generous in naming them. Nigeria really doesn't have to name them. It's our war. All the wars in Africa are Nigeria's war. We fight and win wars around this continent, even around the world in terms of PKOs, peacekeeping operations. But in this case, their help is very important because they seal up their end of the border where the enemy tends to run into. And that makes our fighting more effective.
All right, Dr. Ekomo, I'm just going to ask you to just hold on. We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, I want us to talk about the Amnesty International report that accused actually Nigerian soldiers of alleged war crimes and actually calling for the trial of some very senior military officers here in Nigeria. So stay with us, don't go away, and we'll be right back. Every day, every hour, and every minute, news break in Nigeria. Things happen so fast, it's most times difficult to track and comprehend them. But that's what we do right here on DEJI360. 2015, would you want to come back again?
It's like asking Jesus Christ if he knew he was going to die, will you want to come back as the savior of the world again?
We do not just help you track the stories, we break them down, explore all the angles, analyze the issues so that you can fully comprehend the stories and use them to make the right decisions. Welcome back. International human rights watchdog Amnesty International has accused the Nigerian military of committing war crimes in an attempt to eliminate Boko Haram militants in the northeast region of the country. The rights group, in a report released during the week, said the military was responsible for the extrajudicial killing of over 8,000 people in the northeast. The report says at least 7,000 persons have died in custody after being tortured, or of thirst, starvation, severe overcrowding that led to the spread of diseases, and the use of fumigation chemicals in unventilated cells. The group says the true numbers are actually impossible to confirm, but could be higher. It asked President Buhari to investigate senior military officials for complicity in the alleged war crimes. Among those the organization wants investigated are the Chief of Defense Staff, Air Marshal Alex Bade, Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Kenneth Minima, former Chief of Defense Staff, retired Admiral Ola Saad Ibrahim, and former Chief of Army Staff, retired General Azubike Ihejerika. However, that report did not go down well with the Nigerian military as it hit back at Amnesty International, calling its report a total blackmail. In a statement issued by its spokesperson, Major General Chris Olukolade, the military argues that the entire report was a calculated continuation of a blackmail against the military hierarchy, in which it says Amnesty International had embarked upon as far back as the inception of the military's action against terrorists in Nigeria's northeast. Now, Amnesty International had in the past accused the Nigerian military of gross human rights abuse in its campaign against the Boko Haram insurgency. But this is the first time it would specifically demand some senior military officers be tried for alleged war crimes. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has said he is going to look into the Amnesty International report and take necessary action. Let's just take a quick listen now to the Amnesty officials detailing the content of their report.
We've been in this business for many, many, many years. So we do know that some of the information we get is not legit. We do know that sources sometimes try to mislead us, especially when there is an ongoing conflict with both sides having their interests. And that's why we never base our findings on information received from one source, or two sources, or three sources. We base our findings on information, like in this report, received from 400 witnesses. We corroborate their testimonies. We eliminate those that do not seem to match up. When we talk about military sources, we do not take their word for granted. We look at 800 internal military documents, which we verify and authenticate to make sure that they're true. It's the paper that speaks for itself rather than just the sources. We match the witness testimonies with videos that we analyze and verify and authenticate, also because videos sometimes can be fake. And that's why we have a special team that does just that, technical analysis of videos and photographs that we receive. So all of what you see in this report is not just somebody told us something. It's never like that. And if you open any cases described in this report, you will see that for each of the cases, we use all of this variety of evidence to build this case. We are sharing this information with authorities in Nigeria. We are sharing this information with the International Criminal Court. So we do have to be absolutely sure that our findings are accurate. And that's why we describe how we do it in the methodology section of this report, which is very detailed. And when we go to every case specifically, we describe very carefully how we came to the conclusions that we make. And that's what Amnesty International has been doing since the beginning in every other country. And that's what our credibility is based on.
In as much as Nigeria has suffered so much as a result of war crimes and crimes against humanity committed by Boko Haram and the continued attack by Boko Haram, we believe that the Nigerian military has also committed war crimes and possibly crimes against humanity. We believe that the Nigerian military has unlawfully murdered over 1,200 people. We believe that over 7,000 people may have died under military detention. We believe and we estimate that over 20,000 Nigerians may have faced arbitrary arrest and detention itself, and many more. We've documented countless acts of torture, ill treatments, and etc. And in addition to identifying what kind of crimes we believe are committed, we're also making recommendations to the government on where it should start its investigations, which includes with those named 9 individuals in the report. These are senior military commanders who are either in direct command of military operations in the Northeast, or those senior high-ranking commanders who were overseeing the operations here in Abuja and who do potentially and possibly share responsibility under the command line of chain of command, basically.
All right, I still have Dr. Ona Ekomo with us. And Dr. Ekomo, let me start by asking you what you make of this report by Amnesty International.
Well, I heard the report and I saw it also. And I think it's a pattern of demonizing of Nigerian military and probably even denigrating Nigeria, which is quite, Nigerian bashing. That's what another way we characterize it, which is quite common around the world. What it is that we are not so very good at projecting our image very well. We don't do very good PRs, government, I mean, around the world. So everybody tends to take it out on us. Now, what do I mean by that? First of all, I'm a security expert. Now, when you say to me war crimes have been committed, I want to see corpus evidence. I want to see corpus delicti. You know, there's no corpus evidence. It's all conjectural. It's all hypothetical. I have evidence for you. in April of 2013, the military was accused of committing atrocities in Baga, that is Baga 1, when they said they killed about 200 something civilians and then buried them in mass graves. Well, it was proven beyond any shadow of doubt that only 30 Boko Haram fighters who fired upon the military died in the conflict. One Nigerian soldier, Lance Corporal Moore, died, and 5 civilians died. So there was a total of 36 fatalities in that incident. But because some misguided and uninformed local officials started off by peddling rumors that, they killed 1,000 citizens, AI took it up and said, oh, Nigeria has murdered 1,000 citizens. Probably part of that 7,000 they just spoke about here, or 8,000 they spoke about, depending on which of the figures we are taking. So I feel very offended by these kinds of innuendos. If you say, because I investigated that Baga incident, for example, I investigated it myself personally. And of course, so many other authorities, the military authorities investigated it, the press investigated it, I investigated it, you know, under commission from another organization. And there was no evidence of any such massacre. All the buildings that were said to have been razed were not razed. In fact, just a few buildings which were destroyed by Boko Haram in their attempt to escape, those were the only buildings that were touched. They were touched by Boko Haram, and even locals gave testimony. But the way it appeared was that, oh, Nigerian troops came there and destroyed the whole Baga village in Kukawa local government of Borno State. So we have seen a lot of these kinds of innuendos, and this has played well in the past in denying Nigeria of arms and ammunition. That is why this war has been protracted so long, because the West, mostly the United States, based upon these human rights assumed or alleged human rights abuses, refused to sell weapons to Nigeria, and that protracted the war before Nigeria could find other options. So I think this is not new. These innuendos, I don't know if I will agree with the military spokesman that it's a blackmail, because if you say blackmail, then what are they asking for in return? So I don't know whether I will agree, but it's just a pattern of misinformation. It's a pattern of tarring Nigeria black and, you know, giving Nigeria a very bad name. And I think probably because we are not very good at, our government officials, they are not very good at doing good PR, you know, and improving the image of the country, and even, you know, explaining, that is, giving our own story in a way that is understandable and believable. However, this is conflict.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you if you think this is going to damage the Nigerian army reputation in any way.
Certainly not. This is very well known. I gave a speech in Atlanta last year where I urged U.S. authorities to, I mean, again, the U.S. authorities were very equivocal that they based their non-cooperation with Nigerian military, not giving us access to sophisticated equipment to prosecute the war on terror on that. And I showed evidence that, in fact, at that time, even before it became clear now that Boko Haram is linked in with ISIS, I showed evidence then that, look, Boko Haram is being teleguided by ISIS, and it's the same ISIS threat that the U.S. is fighting out in the Middle East that is playing out here on our soil at another level, and that we needed to do something before the U.S. will have to come here to try to fight ISIS also. So, I mean, we have to understand, we have to put it on a geopolitical map. AI, they are doing their bidding, but, I mean, I guess my problem, for me to give any credence to AI's report, you know, I have to see corpus evidence, and there's no corpus evidence whatsoever. It's all innuendos, allegations, half-truths, them say, because a lot of people, who is AI listening to? They are listening to a lot of disaffected persons. It's all political. Why this war has dragged on so much, this Boko Haram problem has been quite politicized. It's not even a military thing. And they are listening to influential people who have their ears, and they are telling them, you know, a lot of this stuff. But I want to see the evidence. It's not just somebody on camera telling me, you got to show me evidence, you got to show me the fertilizer that is used to kill all these people and all that stuff. I mean, it's really, this is despicable. I think that's the only way to say it. I hate to join issues with them, but it's despicable. It's in very poor taste, because they, as an international organization that is reputable, they shouldn't come out and say something like this unless they have good, solid evidence to back it up.
President Buhari has said he's going to look into it. He's going to review the report. What do you expect from him?
Oh, certainly that's what the president should say. I mean, the president is right on the number. It's an allegation. It's like I go to the police station and I make an allegation against my neighbor that he stole my yam. The police will say, oh, yes, we'll look into it. They will have to come and search whether there's any extra yam with my own markings in his house. So I expect that the president should look at it. The president should not dismiss the report outright. I am only telling you, as somebody who has been close to this matter and as somebody who has studied this issue for a long time, that I am even disappointed that this report was issued like this without corroborating evidence, but just with facts and figures that have no meaning whatsoever. And they even say in there, it's like what they said in the in that report where they said they had satellite imagery, SAT-INT. They ended up saying, oh, but there was no ground verification. You cannot issue intelligence based on satellite without ground verification. I mean, we are not all really so stupid. You know, that's really the truth of this matter. So you must know how these things are done. We don't all believe everything. You know, you have a bully pulpit, you should use it responsibly. This cannot be done in the United States. You cannot go and accuse the U.S. military of atrocities without bringing evidence to back it up. So why is it okay for Nigeria?
All right, now let me ask you this very quickly. Buhari's decision, the president's decision now to move the command and control center to Maiduguri. What's your take on that?
Well, DEJI, I've said to you in this interview before that Boko Haram has changed its tactics. I expect that we will change our tactics also. The import of moving command and control into Maiduguri is to have the commanders closer to the battlefront. Where is the battlefront? Battlefront has moved. They no longer hold territory. They've given up their territory. They are now back to asymmetric structure. They are bombing. You said they bombed in Adamawa State yesterday. Okay, are we going to move the control center to Yola now because they bombed in Adamawa State? They've bombed in, they've hit Yobe 2-3 times. So, I mean, I don't want to name any, I don't want to give them any ideas, but you might probably hear of other attacks elsewhere, even outside the red zone, that is the northeast zone that is under this. Are we going to be moving our command center every day? So what I'm saying is the conflict has changed. Prior to this time, prior to when President Goodluck Jonathan then promised to flush out the military, well, it would have been okay to do that. I think it's an overkill. It wasn't necessary. It wouldn't have been necessary because it had been solved. The problem had been solved. Previously, the command center to do the war on terror in the Northeast was based in Jos. So the president now created 7 div in Maiduguri and put a GOC there. So if you have 7 div in Maiduguri, then you have command and control in Maiduguri. So moving AHQ out of Abuja into Maiduguri is not very sound, I don't think. And it's not going to address the current threat because the threat is now asymmetric threat. Now, what we need to do is to gather more intelligence. So how do we do that? We need to look at strategic threat assessments. We need to do strategic at the Boko Haram organization. What are they doing? How can we predict them? Then we need to look at tactical threat assessments also, you know, because that is where the rubber meets the road. Like we saw this, what do you call it, the bombing just yesterday here at the checkpoint. Then we saw the market bomb. We have seen so many market bombs. Gamboru market has been bombed. Monday market has been bombed twice. We saw the bombing of the meat seller place. So we need to map. We need to do terror mapping. We need to map what they are doing, where they are hitting, so that we can predict their next incursion, their next attack, of course, and then their method of delivery. So these are the kinds of things, and then we need most importantly, intelligence tools. We need human intelligence in the BH camp, and then we need tech int also massively deployed. It's not what we are doing right now. We are still trying to fight a conventional war by moving AHQ into Maiduguri, whereas the war has translated back into the intelligence sphere. I mean, even to fight conventional war, you still need intelligence, for goodness sake. So I think we are missing the ball here, and it's going to take us just that a little longer to win this battle. And I hope we really do the right thing such that we can save Nigerian lives.
Let me just quickly ask you this final question. Do you think Buhari can end this insurgency?
Oh, certainly. Certainly, the president, with the might of the Nigerian army, and with his with dedication, and then he's now he has the ball is in his court now. I think he can end it, and I think he will end it. It's just going to take a little bit much longer. It's not what it's not what people thought that. Once there's a new president, the terrorists will run away. We hope they will run away. I'm still praying that they run away. But from what they are doing right now, it appears they are intensifying. They are not running. So we really need to also kind of draft and perfect new strategies and new plans such that we can go out and deliver stronger operations. But I think one thing, the last thing I have to say, DEJI, is that all Nigerians must support our troops, and we must not do things to discourage these people because you and I are not going to carry rifles and go to the war front to fight, DEJI. You are a journalist, I'm an analyst. We're not going to go and fight, but we need those guys, those young men and women and their hierarchy to do the fighting for us. So we must support them to do their constitutional duty, and I think that's what we owe them as Nigerians, to encourage them to put in their best. And then the policies that are coming into them to execute should be very sound policies.
I think you're absolutely right. We do appreciate your wonderful contributions, Dr. Ona Ekomo, a security expert. Thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
Well, that was Dr. Ona Ekomo, foremost Nigerian security expert, bearing his minds and his thoughts on the Boko Haram insurgency and, of course, the challenge before this administration. Well, that's it on the program. Well, thank you very much for watching. But if you want to watch it again, it's simple. Just go to our website, TV360Nigeria.com. You'll find the program and lots more there. You can also watch us on YouTube by subscribing to our YouTube channel. It's actually youtube.com/TV360Nigeria. Or follow us on Google Plus at TV360Nigeria. Just like us on Facebook. The address is facebook.com/TV360Online. You can also follow us on Twitter. Our handle is @TV360Online. I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.